Harold the H, arc. I can't get into it as much because of my voice. Peacock.
Or do you want me to do it?
Well, yeah, give me some arcing.
You set it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And here's Harold the H.
Arc.
He's better than me.
There you go.
Peacock.
Ooh.
He's going to he's going to talk about an Ipswich family feud of epic proportions in the 19th century, and there was racetrack brawl, maternity cases, which means there's a bit of bonking going on, and of convict hanging and much more. Harold, are you there?
Yes, Danny, how you going?
How good was his arcing?
That was sensational. You better be careful. You better not let him do that again.
Well,
he could take your spot.
we could call him arcing up. Now
We've got to see Damien on the hill doing the arc.
That'll be a sight for sore eyes. Now listen, could I ask you about this magnificent story? You build it and get the listeners in.
Yeah, that's right. Look, the American Hatfield-McCoy feud in the 19th century had nothing on this Tapp feud here in Ipswich, which was the Tapp family versus themselves and the rest of the world.
Oh,
you see, there were, like you said, there were maternity cases, a racetrack brawl, convict hanging. In 7 years, Danny, the Tapp family made at least 8 appearances in the Ipswich courthouse. Now, it started in March 1894 when the mother, Lois Tapp of Blackstone, was a witness in a child maintenance case.
Right.
Lois testified against her father, who was ordered to pay maintenance or go to jail for 6 months. The man actually chose to go to jail, even though he had the money. and then just 2 months later, in May 1894, Lois was back in court when her daughter, Mary Ann Tapp, brought her own child maintenance case. Now, Mary Ann's sister, Elizabeth Tapp, testified in support, and another sister who was married, Harriet Taylor. She even went to press the defendant, demanding to know what he was going to do to help. But, you see, he couldn't do anything because his mother wouldn't let him. Anyway, the young man was ordered to pay maintenance, but just 5 months later, and this is where it starts to get exciting, because in October 1894, a daughter-in-law, Harriet Tapp, was charged with assault of a woman on an omnibus. Harriet was accused of punching the woman and hitting her face with a basin of butter.
Oh, my God.
Now, Harriet... I know, it's greasy stuff. And Harriet defended herself by saying the bus had hit a bump, which caused the woman to fall face first into the butter. And in any case, she'd been daring her the whole time. But Harriet was fined 5 shillings for the frack-up. And then just 18 months later, in 1896, Harriet was fined again, this time for indecent language. The Tapps just keep going to court. In 1898, Harriet's husband, William Tapp, was sued for defamation. And in 1899, the Tapp feud turned against themselves. That's when the married sister, Harriet Taylor, charged her own father, Jacob Tapp, with assault.
Well, they were basically battered with butter.
It's non-stop, this family.
It's a disgrace.
They stay out of court. And even in this year, in 1899, Harriet, she went down to a paddock in Blackstone to call the boys up from the creek. That's when she heard her mother, Lois. So Harriet went over to see her when, according to Harriet, and totally unprovoked, Lois caught Harriet around the neck with one hand and pulled her hair with the other. Now, this is mother and daughter here.
It's a disgrace.
Lois started punching Harriet and knocked her to the ground. The pair were then wrestling and screaming with fingernails out in full force until the father, Jacob, got home. Harriet ran up to him, but according to Harriet, Jacob then punched her.
He punched his mother?
His daughter.
He's a grub.
It is.
Get him into my office now.
Well, the case got dismissed, so he didn't go into anyone's office. But just 2 years later, in 1901, the mother, Lois, and daughter, Harriet, were back at it again. This time, very publicly at the Ipswich races.
What's new? It still happens now.
Well, this is the mother and daughter, and they had this huge brawl that grew a huge crowd around them, all cheering on. And as a result, there was a long list of witnesses who were eager to appear at the court case that followed.
Right.
And Harriet, this time, she was found guilty of assault, attacking her mum. But meanwhile, it just goes on and on, Danny. The feud between the Tapp family and the rest of the world, that continued. Because in 1902, another of Lois's sons, Richard Tapp of Bundamba, risked his life when he testified against the Kenneth brothers in their murder trial.
They were bushrangers.
That's right, Australia's last bushrangers. And James Kenneth was hanged partly on Rich's evidence. The feud extended to the next generation of Tapps because in 1918 a grandson, Tom Tapp from Bouvau, was killed in action in the First World War.
Right.
That was straight after he'd been released from prison, having served 12 months of being absent without leave.
Oh.
And in 1938, another grandson, Jacob Tapp, fractured his skull while playing soccer for Blackstone Rovers.
Yeah.
So, Danny, what I want to know is, do any of our listeners remember the Tapp family? Because there have got to be more stories about this never-ending feud with the world.
But hold on, is it Tapp?
You know them.
What is it, Tapp?
Tapp. T-A-P-P, Tapp.
You remember there used to be the race caller in Sydney?
Yep. Johnny Tapp.
Warren Tapp used to be on the radio
Warren
in
Tapp,
Brisbane. Wazza?
Yeah.
I work with Wazza. So is there any Tapps out there? Well, there's a few. There's one here. There's a couple of Tapps here, but they don't talk. But you get it, Harold? They don't talk. They're Tapps. Okay, turn them on.
But when you turn them on, you just can't stop them, can you?
Oh, you're a funny man. So how do we find this story? Because you've got many great stories that people could swat up and read about Ipswich. Where?
We have to go to historyouthere.com. In fact, there's 100 stories in Ipswich because, Danny, today is our 100th segment here on West Melbourne Radio together. So historyouthere.com.
And you know that Jack Sim's going to be on with us, and he's got a segment called The Rattling Chairs.
Sounds scary.
I'm flaming scared. That was Harold the H.
Oh, hang on. Let me turn the mic on. I have my mic on.
That was Harold the H. Peacock on historyouthere.com on West Bremer Radio.